Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome to the United Stand. Solskjaer safe for now. This is what we're talking about. I'm joined by Levin. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing all right. We were just having a conversation before, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of those things throughout the show. But life is all right. I'm having some technical issues, as always. Somebody's always having technical issues on the United Sun, right? But today is my turn. But I managed to sort it out for the show, so should be good.
When you're live, you're live. People don't realise this. We provide such good, consistent content, but we are live. And when you're live, things can go wrong. But look, what is going wrong at United for me at the moment is this lack of decision making. I'm firmly in the camp. I don't know about you, Levin. I mean, we'll go through some of the headlines. Romano's, again, been speaking about the managers that we're interested in. He's mentioned Rodgers, Ten Hag and Poch, but the problem is that they're attached to clubs. I don't think that is a problem. Steven Gerrard's a Rangers manager. He's very soon going to be a Villa manager. The managers either want to come to your club, and if they want to come to your club, you pay the price that the club wants. If they don't want to come to your club, then you've got a problem. And you have to find somebody that does want to come to your club. It's looking like Solskjaer is going to be staying, which I find absolutely baffling. What are your thoughts on the situation at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's pretty embarrassing on the behalf of, just the higher ups at Manchester United. It actually reminds me a lot of sort of the transfer strategy throughout this summer where, if you remember, you did the show, so I know you remember when Romano's constantly talking about looking for opportunities in the market. And it was basically just people whose contracts are expiring, 1 year left. And it's like, it's almost the same thing with the managerial situation. It's like, no, we don't want to buy someone that has a couple of years left on their contract. If they're free, and then we'll go out and get them. Maybe if they're expiring at the end of the year, we can go out and get them. But in the case of those three managers, it's like, yeah, you don't want to go out there and pay the money for them when, like you said, it's not that's not impossible. You just got to go out and pay the money. And so it's really disappointing to me. I know a lot of people feel how I feel, where it's starting to get, that bit where it just starts to get a bit tiring. It starts to get a bit boring. It starts,
I definitely know.
A bit bare, do you know what I mean? And it's like, Mark, I get the notifications on my phone and I'm seeing the people, the aggregates tweeting out information and quotes. I don't even read it, man. I don't read it because I just go, I know what's happening. All that's happening is we're getting messages from whoever, wherever. At the end of the day, Ollie's going to be the manager for the Watford game. Realistically, he's probably going to manage the team till the end of the season. And then what happens, happens. So, you know what I mean? So I've reached a point now where I'm just very apathetic about all of it.
I got into a bit of trouble this afternoon, actually. Chris Winterburn, who's a journalist, I actually quite like. He does I do quite like him. And he tweeted out that he's got a bit of an update coming later. And I was just in that sort of mood where I just replied like I do to some people. And I went, update will be United admire certain coaches but are doing nothing about it. And he sort of replied, and I sort of apologized. I went, look, I'm being pedantic. But then the update did come out, and it basically was that, because that is the update. It's like United. I mean, I think one of the lines was, and it baffles me. It really baffles me. It was something along the lines of Rangnick's not been contacted at all. United like Rodgers, but they realised that they've got some convincing to do to the fans. Well, I just thought, how are they going to do that then? They're just going to start doing what do you think about Brendan Rodgers? What people think about Brendan Rodgers now is what they're going to think about him in the summer. It's like he used to manage Liverpool. That's the problem. Some people can't go past that. I personally can, because I would take Klopp tomorrow. That's how bad we are. I'm past the rivalry because we're not anyone's rival at the moment. We're probably playing Norwich's rival. But I did want to ask you about this, and you can answer that bit as well. What I don't get is that if you want Ten Hag, why are you waiting until the summer? He's still under contract. If you want Rodgers, why are you waiting until the summer? He's still under contract. If you want Poch, why are you waiting for him to be sacked? If those people don't want to come to our club now, why would we go and get them in the summer? To me, it's like you get a manager that wants to come here, and I just. My problem with it, Levin, is it's like we need to sack a manager. They haven't sacked a manager, and they're sort of saying we haven't sacked him because we can't get the manager that we want. But it's not like a player. You don't wait for the summer. You can do it now, like Villa have.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that really frustrates me is sort of when you try to find any sort of valid reasoning, a lot of it would just come to us probably just cheaper for them to do it later, right?
100%, yeah.
It's just it being cheaper, later rather than sooner is all right for them. And I think that's where it gets scary, because who knows what happens this season? Let's say it just falls off a cliff completely, right? And, the results get even worse for Ollie. And let's say it gets to a point where they just have to sack him and then bring in an interim What if things don't go right for the interim? What if all of a sudden we have half our squad wants to leave? We might not be in any sort of European football next year. So then when you go for some of these managers, maybe they look at it and they go, I don't really know about that one, right? If Brendan Rodgers is able to get Champions League football with Leicester and we don't have Champions League football and half of our squad is leaving, does he look at that and go with as much certainty? Maybe if we throw him the money, yeah, but I just don't like the idea of leaving it later. Everything, you're almost allowing things to potentially go wrong in that sense, right? And that doesn't help us in any way. And as fans, it's unfair. You know, we always talk about people who are hardworking, they pay their money to the team. It's sort of like, it's just disrespectful. It's like, you know, get this sorted now. Do something about this now. People don't want this. People aren't happy right now.
There is literally no respect for the fan base at all. And, you know, this might sound melodramatic, but I know how it's impacting my mental health. And I imagine it's impacting a lot of people. I think the club have acted appallingly. You know, I would have respected the club more if they'd come out on Tuesday and said, when we're behind Ollie, because there would have been uproar, but there's uproar now, you know,
Sure.
but they've just sort of like, I find it really difficult to think that Ollie and the players have been sent on holiday. And I think that to me was a surefire sign that they're going to sack him, get him out of the country, and they're going to sack him. Now, obviously, they actually have, it's looking like, sent him on holiday. Now, there's still time. Of course, he could still be sacked tomorrow and Friday. I think it's looking more and more unlikely, but it could still happen. But I'm like, so basically the plan was send the players and Ollie on holiday, stay quiet, and leave the fans to suffer for the week, because there's just no account. No, there's nothing from United. They've just sort of like, we've lost the derby. We're not sorry. We're just all going to disappear for a bit and come back at the end of the week and start talking about Watford. It's awful from a commercial, from a branding, from a human point of view. I think it's disgusting the way they've acted.
Yeah, it's weird. So I disagree with you in one sense, and I'll talk about it. And I know you tweeted about it, and I responded to it and everything. I think the aspect of the players going away and Ollie going back to Norway for a couple of days or however long it is, I don't actually think there's much wrong with that. Where I think they went wrong is, I think if they knew that, you know, regardless of the holiday or whatever, he was still going to be the manager, then you do come out with statements saying we back him, whatever, because then at least fans aren't left wondering, right? Because even me, myself, that I didn't think much of the holiday thing, when there were people going, well, this is what they did with, you know, Van Gaal, and then he was such, I just sort of go, actually, are they letting him go then? Like, what is sort of going on here?
I think it's because they had they didn't do it on the previous international breaks, and they had a friendly lined up as well. So, yeah, I did see your reply, and I agree. You know, it can be not a bad thing, but you can understand why people thought it was a something. And I also agree with you. The club should just come out and say Monday, Tuesday, like they're having a break. We're firmly behind them, and we're getting ready for Watford. You know. Yeah,
because as much as trust me, when I say this, I can't say with any more certainty. I don't want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be our manager anymore. I don't. I love Ole, but I don't want him to be our manager. If he is going to continue to be our manager, a couple of days break is probably the best thing that everybody needs right now. Just get away from it, right? Refresh. And you know, people talks about all the abuse he's getting or whatever, the stress, whatever. It might be best for him, right, to be able to just go away for a couple of days and, you know, clear his head, whatever. Maybe it will make him realize he needs to just step down from the job himself. Who knows?
Football manager's out. He can have a look at that, get some ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be doing a football manager save and trying to see what works in the match engine there. I just think it's really, I don't know, man. I said this almost every show I've done over the past couple of weeks, Mark, but the communication is so poor. And when we see that, you know, the social media head or whatever talking about paying attention to, you know, what's happening on socials and whatnot. So they're aware of it, but, you know, just they're choosing not to act in a way that, you know, would actually be positive towards the fans. Because you're right, people would not be happy. I wouldn't be happy if they came out and said they're back to Ollie. But people aren't happy anyway now. So
well, that's basically what they've done without having the balls to do it. You know, their silence is backing him, but they just haven't got the balls to actually communicate. So they leave fans in this situation where they're like, oh, maybe they are going to do it. Maybe they are going to do it. And this is why people are feeling sick to their stomach. And it's like you said, you know, if they don't sack him, which is probably looking likely to be fair, even though I still hope that it will happen. You said, you know, it might get to a point where he has to be sacked. Well, obviously, I think we all accept that we're already at that point. We're probably at that with Liverpool, probably at that City. But I think what you mean is that obviously he should have been sacked. We all know that. But there is a point where we're not able to get in the top four. Like, you know, it's mathematically not possible. That's the only further thing that can happen. And then when that does happen, there's no coming back. That is ground zero. That is the, you know, this situation, he should be sacked and a replacement has a chance. They're taking us towards a place where there is no chance. And of course, my fear with that is when top four can't happen, I don't think Ronaldo next season can happen, because I can't imagine a 37-year-old saying, yeah, I'll play in the Europa League.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well where, once again, I'm repeating myself, I'm a broken record here. That's scary because mathematically impossible to get top four is way too late, because that's taken into account just like, you know, you straight, no matter what you do, no matter how many games you win, you just can't get it. But like, you could reach that point way before, just because it's never good to allow yourself to rely on other teams' results, right? Because if you're at the stage where it's like, okay, we can take top four if we win all these games, and then those guys lose a couple games, like you don't want to reach that point, because at that point it's too late. You can't rely on other teams, you know, performance to guarantee if you get top four or not. So realistically, I've seen a lot of people say it on socials. It's starting to get towards the point where it does feel like a write-off. Like we're starting to get towards the point where it does feel like this season's just going to play out however it plays out, and we just have to accept that as fans, because there's nothing we can really do. What I will say to people, and I feel like it's an important message to send out. I know a lot of people are upset with Ollie. I know a lot of people don't like Ollie. I feel like there's currently too much focus and energy being put towards Ollie, whereas I think a lot more of it needs to be put towards the people above him. Shout out to my guy, Drill Chester on Twitter. He made a great tweet where he put a picture of a puppet master, right? And he annotated it, and it's just Ollie's the puppet, the Glazers are the puppet master, right? Now, you can shout at the puppet all you like. Realistically, not much is going to change. It's a puppet, right? But if you shout at the puppet master might not leave, and I don't think the Glazers are ever really going to leave. But if you shout at the puppet master, at least they're probably going to change the puppet, right? Because they're thinking, okay, you know, things are getting bad for me right now. I got to do something, right? So, you know, I'd say to people, you know, continue to put, you know, the causes that are going on, you know, behind the scenes, things that were going on when the Super League stuff was going on. You know, these are the kind of things we need to start doing again, because ultimately that's the only way we're going to see change. I'm sure a lot of people think, well, Ollie, if he loves the club so much, he should just step down. Look, a lot of people who will say that probably have never and will never be in a position to say no to that kind of money. And not only just the money aspect of it, Mark, as much as Ollie's not good enough, this is his dream job. He probably wants to succeed. He probably wants to try his hardest to succeed. So for him to just magically come to the realization, oh, maybe I'm just not good enough to do this, let me step down, you're going to be waiting a long time if that's what you're waiting for, is what I'd say. So
yeah, and I think, you know, I do feel stressed, Swell. I do. I feel very tired. I feel very stressed because it hurt. You know, this is, I mean, look, we do a lot of content on here, but, you know, Manchester United, whether I was doing the United stand or not, it would still occupy my mind as much as it is, because I've always been like this, and I'm sure Levin's the same, and I'm sure most of you are the same. It occupies your mind when you love football and you love the football club that you support. But I do agree with Levin. I think that Solskjaer can't sack himself, and the Glazers are foolish on many levels. There's a really big business reason to sack Solskjaer. That's top four. That's players that are going to leave if they stay. He's still going to pick McFred, etc. The football's still going to be crap. But where the Glazers have really missed the trick here is that if they're monitoring social media, sacking Solskjaer would have been the dangerous thing at one point, because the fans would go, oh, he's a legend. You've got a massive majority of the fan base saying he's got to go, and the Glazers aren't doing it. And that is amazing to me. And that is why they're at fault, because everybody knows he should be sacked. He should have gone after Liverpool, but they've still decided not to do it, even though it would be safe to do it. And nobody would be going, the Glazers out. If they sack Solskjaer, I think a lot of people would just forget about the Glazers, like when they signed Ronaldo. They'd go, yeah, don't like him, but they've done the right thing. What's next? There would be a massive boost. I saw it when we did it with Mourinho, when we did it with Van Gaal. There's a massive bounce back when you get rid of a manager that everyone's tired of. And for some reason, they've refused to do that. And I think it probably is to do with financials. Because I was going to mention this, Levin. I was thinking about this today. Obviously, I want us to beat Watford. I want us to beat Chelsea. I want us to beat Arsenal. I want us to beat Palace. And you know what? I'm not going to say we will, because I said that about Liverpool and Man City, but we all know we're capable of doing it. It won't happen. I've accepted that, but we are capable of going on a bit of a mini run, and maybe that'll happen under Solskjaer. But what will happen is that mini run will be shite football. And also, I've got to say, it's very difficult. I find it unpalatable to think about Solskjaer doing the press conference next Friday. I find it unpalatable to see pictures of Solskjaer on the training ground. It's not because I dislike Solskjaer. I like Solskjaer. It's just because I see failure and I see something that shouldn't be there. And that should not be. I just think the standards of the football club have dropped to a level that he should not be stood there with Carrick and Phelan on a training ground or on the side of a pitch. There should be punishment for your actions, and that should be sacking. But I think it's going to be very difficult for fans, I think, over the next few weeks to be put in this situation. And I firmly blame the Glazers for that.
Yeah, look, I already thought we were way past the point where it was like, can I actually go on, right? When you're hearing reports about certain players not being happy, and when the results have been the way they have been, I like you said, I just found it very hard to even imagine, them out on the training pitch. But we'll get the pictures, we'll get the pictures of people smiling and whatnot, and everyone's gonna act like everything's just fine. The one thing I'll say is, it very much feels like we've lost sight of what we're good at, even on the football pitch. Because we weren't always this bad. Like the football we've played now is like the worst football we've played under Ollie, and it's like the best group of players we have had under him. And it's frustrating that it feels like we've sort of just lost sight of the things we were good at, and we can't even do the basics right. It's the reason why people say we have no identity, right? Because teams who are good teams, when they're trying new things, at least they will always be able to default back to what they're good at as a squad and sort of build off of that. We don't have that. Right, we don't have that. Well, let's just go back to what was working once, and that's very scary. So I don't see how, like I said, I want us to go out there and win. I want us to beat Watford. I want us to beat Chelsea. I want us to beat whoever. I hate seeing us lose. I just don't see it anymore. I don't see how we do it, because there's been barely any signs this season that we are capable, even with all the Galactico players we have, of playing good football, and it's a shame.
It is interesting because I remember, I've just come into my head there. I mean, I think that the Villarreal game's irrelevant, really. We're not going to not get through the group now because of that Atalanta draw. I think we'll be fine. But the next 4 Premier League games: Watford away, Chelsea away, Palace at home, Arsenal at home, and then we've apparently got an easy run. But the reality is, before you get to that easy run, you've got to win 4 Premier League games. I could be wrong, but I can't see it. But there's definitely another loss coming in, and another loss amplifies this situation again. And the interesting thing for me is that I think when Mourinho got sacked, we were something like, and someone in the chat will know, I think we were like 13, 14 points off 4th place, and he quite rightly got sacked. But the interesting thing is, if you go back to that Mourinho season, at this point in the league, considering he gets sacked about 5 games from now, he had 3 more points than Ollie. Ollie's going to find it very difficult to have more points than what Jose had. And I've got a feeling that teams are clocking points up the same way they did 3 years ago as well. I mean, West Ham are clocking a lot of points up. Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, maybe Arsenal. So I can see the club don't realise this, but they're going to get themselves in a parallel universe where I think Ollie's going to have the same or maybe less points than what Jose had around that December time they sacked Jose. And they're gonna carry on, and that to me is just a massive sign of how the standards are just dropping year on year.
And it's funny because the only difference is just Mourinho's relationship with the people above him was just very toxic, whereas it does still feel like, and Oli isn't that guy. Oli isn't the guy that's gonna start kicking up a fuss about, oh well, I wanted this and I didn't get this, right? And press conferences, he isn't, it's not gonna be that. And for that reason, he probably will be just able to sort of stay and continue on. And it's a shame because I don't think Ollie's time at United has completely been useless. I know some people do feel that way now, and some people do feel as if, he should have never, ever had the job for any period of time. It was just always the wrong decision. I think there was some good at one point that was done. But once you start getting to that point where now he has less points than what Mourinho had when he was sacked or something along those lines, people are just going to see it as regression, and rightfully so. And that is just the sad thing, because I didn't see it getting this bad. I didn't ever think, Mark, that he was gonna, make us a title winner or whatever. But I didn't expect it to get to the point where we're having these conversations where it's like, he's not even gonna be able to beat what Mourinho had. That is the really, sort of tough thing to stomach right now. And I want to apologize quickly, because usually, because my voice is quite deep, I'm usually I try my best to stay a bit happy, so it doesn't sound too, I try to speak a bit more like this, so it doesn't sound too, but today it's just sort of nah, man, I just can't do this.
It's very tiring, isn't it? But I think you make a good point as well, because you know what? If somebody said to me, "What good has Ollie done at the moment?" I don't want to give him any good, because I just want him gone. And then when he's gone, I'll look back on it in a positive light. And lots of people are saying that. The problem is that Ollie is a legend. That's not a problem. Ollie is a legend, and he brings a smile to my face when I think about him as a player. He is. I think I'll repeat it. I don't know what your thoughts are. I think he's been hung out to dry by the club. I actually think the kindest thing for him was to sack him, give him his money, and send him on his way. And I think by carrying it on, it's such a massive, massive task to come back from this. It's highly predictable. It's going to get even more toxic. And a club legend as a player doesn't deserve to be in this situation. I think actually it's cruel to keep him in the post. And he may think he wants that post, and he may think he can turn it around. Fair play to him for that. But it's got the potential to get a lot worse. And I must admit, I stuck by him for a very long time. But what I found over the last couple of weeks is a lot of the things I thought were good, I'm now going, his signings actually haven't worked out to be that good in the main. His football in the main hasn't been that good since he got the contract. It was free and loose when he came in, but you expect that with an interim. We've never won anything, and you compare that to Van Gaal and Mourinho. So it is, I think when he's gone, history will be kinder to him. But at the moment, his good work of the past is just being ignored because we're in this toxic situation.
Yeah, and I think that's really scary. Myself, I've started to do that, where I have gone back and I've started to sort of analyze, almost psychoanalyze, and everything that sort of happened during his tenure, looking at certain things, reading certain interviews and things he did in the past, right? Because I've tried to picture the timeline, and I've tried to picture sort of the points where it's gone wrong. And there's certain things that you definitely can point to. I think certain aspects of the recruitment just have not aligned with things he said he wanted in terms of the vision and the direction he wanted the team to go in. Of course, just the coaching staff, right? We talked about competence the other day on the show, just a severe lack of it, right? A severe lack of it. And it's frustrating because I remember, I think it was last year, right? Because around this time last year, we were sort of established as the best counter-attacking team in the Premier League. And we really were. You looked at certain numbers, certain statistics, we definitely were one of the best counter-attacking teams. That was a big strength that we had. Teams obviously started to adapt to that, and it became a thing where, we needed to sort of understand how to beat teams who aren't going to do that. How do we beat a low block? How do you break down a low block? And so Ollie, I think, was very aware that they had to improve in that aspect, but he doesn't have the people with him that can help him to achieve that, because he himself can't, right? If you look at his teams of the past, that was never one of their biggest strengths. So obviously you need coaches around you that can help implement that. We just haven't had that, right? And so there's plenty of things you can just sort of look at where you go, yeah, the signs were there. The seeds were planted a long time ago. And so it was always going to get to this point. But like you alluded to, it just would have been better if the board would have cut it off before we got to that point. And I think competent people above Ollie would have been able to see that, right? I don't think it takes a genius to see that, but we don't have that. We have Fletcher, who Ollie had as his coach at some point. So, yeah.
It is interesting because it's we have a terrible... forget Watford. I don't know why people are pumping up Watford. If we can't beat Watford, we're in big trouble. And respect to Watford, and we probably won't beat Watford now, but Watford should not be the game people are talking about. Watford is go and beat Watford. That's like Spurs for me. That's like we have too many good players to not go and beat Watford. We're massive favourites for that. We might not win, but we should win that. The game I'm looking at is Chelsea. And I'm like, our record at Stamford Bridge is not very good anyway. Chelsea are playing very, very well at the moment. And the only way we can get a result at Chelsea is to definitely play a back five and just park the bus. And that's not going to get him out of this issue. We can't. If the board had said to Ollie, right, look, we're going to stick with you, but you've got to, you can't, please stop parking the bus. Like you've got to try and play the right way because you're not going to get the fans back. But this is where it annoys me, the board again. I don't even feel sorry for. I don't even blame Ollie. Ollie will do that because he's just trying to get 3 points. But the board are like, oh yeah, we'll just stick with him. He's definitely parking the bus against Chelsea, 100%. And Ollie again has spoken, like you said there, about attacking football the United way. We've heard a lot of this over the last 2 years. We don't play like that. We play counter-attacking, park the bus football. And again, the club are just blind to it. I just don't think they understand football.
I'm gonna stop you there, Mark. Chelsea, Watford are going to give us a problem. Watford will give us a problem because Ranieri is a great coach and he's coming in and I think they've had a bit of a rocky start, but understandably it's Watford. Their talent pool isn't the deepest. But if I have a feeling Ollie will look to go out and try and attack in that game, right? Because I think, he's got to. I think the narrative will be that he's got to go out in that game and go at them. They have real threats for the counter. The likes of Dennis, Sarr, they're not going to be an easy team to just sort of constantly, they will catch us out on the counter very, very,
the wrong
very
sort of players for us without Varane as well.
Oh, goodness, yeah. That's not an easy game for us by any means. That is not an easy. I'm seeing people mentioning Fozzie. Yeah, Ben Foster, he's gonna have a masterclass game against us probably, right? So Watford is going to be... I don't get it though, because what do the board expect? Like, what the people above Ollie, what do they expect? It's not like anybody that knows anything about, just like football. Like, this team is not all of a sudden going to start playing like prime 08, 09 United. We're not going to start playing like prime Barcelona. We're not going to start playing like, Bayern from last year. Like, we always talk about the standards being lowered and lowered and lowered, but what is it that they want? What do they think is going to happen? Because there's nothing that could just all of a sudden change in the next 2 weeks to me that would make him then good enough to do what many people said we should be doing at the start of the year, which is, challenging for the side. That's the craziest part. I think a lot of people have actually forgotten the fact that this is a team that was expected to challenge for the title at one point, right? A lot of people now are just saying, can we at least see some attacking football? Like, we're hungry for attacking football at the least. Not even to try, We're not even hungry like, oh, let's challenge, like maybe we can get back in. We're just hungry to see any sort of good football, right? There's teams who play brilliant football who just will never challenge at this point. So the fact that that's sort of what we want, what a lot of fans want right now, just shows you just how finished, this situation is. And so the board, the people above Ollie, I keep saying this and I will keep saying this, they just have to be the ones that really people look at and go, what are you doing? Like, how have you allowed us to get into this position?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about this season. I really am. And I'd love to be wrong about this, but I'm very worried about it. I mean, the Pogba situation, people are like, oh, good, he's injured. No, it's not good he's injured. I mean, it's not good he's injured. He's an option. If he's on the bench, it might sharpen the minds of people who are in the first team. If he's in the team, he's always got that potential. Varane will be back soon. Cavani worries me. Very important player, and he just seems to pick up lots of injuries. I don't see Ollie refusing to use McTominay and Fred, and every time he plays those, you're probably going to lose the midfield battle unless it's Leeds. So I worry. I do really, really worry about it. And it's interesting. One thing I'd forgotten to ask you was that I saw something today about how, I can't remember where it was from, but I've heard it a couple of times in the last, I've probably heard it a few times in the last few months, that United don't want to make the mistakes of the past where they've sacked a manager and had to bring a new manager in. And I don't really understand what they're getting at, but basically it's all about this new model, isn't it? They've got this new model where it's about believing in the project that they've got and sticking with it. And it's the biggest loads of nonsense I've ever heard, but basically it's like, well, in this position we sacked Mourinho, but we're not going to sack Ollie. We're going to stick with the project. We got rid of Van Gaal, and maybe we should have stuck with the project. And we're not going to make that mistake again. We're going to stick with it. I mean, I suppose the joke behind that is that Solskjaer has been nearly here for 3 years. But what is your thought on that? I mean, is that a flawed thing to be doing?
Do you know why that's so ironic to me? It's so ironic to me because as much as I think all of the other managers probably did have to go, you could make a case that all of those guys deserve more time to some extent, right? And Ollie's like the one out of all of them where I go, no more time is going to fix. Like, there is no more time you can give this guy that is actually really going to fix the situation, right? So it's so ironic to me that it's like, yeah, but we messed up with Mourinho there, so we're just not going to do that for Ollie. It's like, no, no, that's not how it works. And what's even more frustrating is, let's say that's the case. Let's say they look at it and they go, we want to stick with this project. We want to work on this. You want to commit to it. What makes you even think that the blueprint you've set out is a successful one? Because the people who are in charge of football operations at the moment, they've had no success in the Premier League, right? Ed Woodward's not brought a Premier League title home, right? None of these people actually sort of have any, evidence that what they want to implement, the plan that they want to implement, will work, right? And so if that's the case, it's just stubbornness. It's almost just ignorance, where it's like thinking that they are much better than they are. And sometimes that's the harsh reality, right? Sometimes it might hurt to find out that you're not as good as you thought you were, right? But the problem is they don't have anybody that's holding them accountable, because we have owners who aren't really passionate about football, right? When you look at Abramovich, I think Abramovich is the one example people always use. And it's a good example because Abramovich, he watches all the matches. He's thinking, I don't like what I'm seeing. I mean, I don't know what I'm seeing. And
he's a football fan, isn't he? He's a football fan.
And if you don't like what he's seeing, I'm sure he'll talk to the people that he entrusts the club with, Maria and whatnot, and other people, and go, what's going on? I don't like this. We got to do something, right? Whereas Joe Glazer, I always find it funny because I think it's so true. I don't think Joe Glazer would be able to name 5 Premier League players not on United. I don't think he would. I don't think he'd be able to actually name the 4 first team at United, right? So and that's why it scares me. And I've said this before, if they do sack Ollie, I don't trust these people to make the right decision in terms of who they bring in, right? We're hearing, they admire Rodgers and they admire Ragnick and they admire Ten Hag. But we've seen with teams this season, this year, teams can admire whoever they want to admire. It doesn't mean they're going to get that person. Look at Spurs in the summer. How many people did they want? They didn't get the people they wanted. Look at Newcastle, who have all the money in the world right now. They wanted Fonseca. Then they wanted Emery. Then they ended up with Eddie Howe. And I'm not saying Eddie Howe's a bad manager, but the people who they're telling us, or the people who the media are telling us we're in for or are candidates for the jobs, when the job becomes available eventually, it doesn't mean that those people are going to be the people we actually get. We could end up way down the pecking order. So, yeah, it just doesn't look good anytime soon for us. If I'm being completely, I always try to be optimistic, but it genuinely just isn't looking too good for us.
Look, obviously he should have been sacked. It's a joke that they haven't sacked him, but what they don't realise, or maybe they do realise, is that by not sacking him, this is as bad as Leeds fans singing Ollie's at the wheel, because basically, as fans, as rival fans, you can take it as read that United can't get a manager. Now, how embarrassing is that? You have to keep a crap manager because you can't get a manager. And you may as well take that as read. And that reflects on the board again. They, Manchester United, in November, cannot get a manager to come in and take on this squad. So they're having to stick with what they've got. And if they are sticking it for a project, I mean, bloody hell, what is the project? I personally think that the reason they think it's a good project is because if you think about it, under Mourinho and Van Gaal, they're quite strong characters. So I imagine behind the scenes, there was some quite strong conversations that used to take place. Whereas with Ollie, he probably comes in with the rich tea and the biscuits and, everyone just sits down and has a chat and gets on with each other. And I think that's the project United don't want to change. They like the coziness that everyone gets on with each other. Everyone knows each other. That almost the football's become secondary. And I think the project is the situation and the familiarity and the friendships that they've built between the board and the coaches, and everyone gets on. And you always hear it from the players as well. Even Bruno said it the other day. He was talking about Ollie. He didn't talk about his great tactical awareness. He said what a nice guy he is. And I think that's the project they're talking about, because what is the project, Levin, when you look at it from your point of view? What are the positives? Because for me, he's not a good man manager. He's not. He's got favourites and he treats other players like crap. The football project is abysmal. And I'll go back to a year ago when we lost to Istanbul and he just decided to park the bus and grind results out. He doesn't play a good brand of football. I think he's questionable in the transfer market. I think he's questionable around youth development. And I think more importantly, people get lost. I think he's questionable around development in general. I personally think Bruno Fernandes is the same player. I think Greenwood's the same player and Rashford's the same player they were 3 years ago. They're very good players, but they haven't developed like they would have done under a Tuchel or a Klopp or a Pep. And the reason for that is they're not playing in systems that are going to make them develop. Counter-attacking football, you can do that on Sunday morning with your pub team. It's not going to stretch or develop players.
Well, the thing is, Mark, is we already had mastered that per se. And it feels weird to even talk about this team right now and say we've mastered anything. But we were literally the best counter-attacking team in England last season, for a lot of last season, and even before that. So there had to be development, there had to be improvement, there had to be a next step. Okay, we can counter-attack, cool, we're really good at that. But that's not how that's not the blueprint for us to be able to go out there and challenge for the title and go out there and challenge for Champions League. There had to be development, there had to be improvement, and we just haven't seen that, right? You know, you talk about the project. When I've gone back and looked at certain interviews and whatnot, it seems very much like Ollie just wanted to replicate, you know, the 08, 09 stuff, right? Or 07, 08, whatever, whichever year, those specific years when he was actually, I think he was a coach at the time at the team as like a under 23 coach or something like that, right? So I very much think, you know, that's what he had in mind. The problem is though, is that, you know, there has to be evolution there. There has to be, you know, improvement. And we just haven't seen any of that. And I think you're very right. I think some of those players, I wouldn't say their growth has been stunted, but it definitely isn't, you know, necessarily the development we wanted to see. And I think certain decision-making just has led to, you know, things just not going that way where, look, I love Ronaldo. I'm never going to sit here and say Ronaldo is the problem. I don't think that, right? But, you know, Greenwood, right? We all wanted to see Greenwood to continue to develop as a number 9 and improve in that sense. Just haven't really gotten the chance to see that. You know, I think we all were really optimistic that, you know, with Sancho coming in, right? They've wanted this guy for 2-3 years. He's going to come in and they must be waiting to just do whatever they've wanted to do on the right-hand side. But now they have Sancho to do it. We haven't seen that, right? So there's just all these questionable things that just sort of make you go, so what is your idea? Like, what do you want to do, right? Like, what is that perfect game of football that you have in your head? I don't think they have it. I think Ollie's mentality has very much been, I just want to win games. And I think typically management was sort of that way, right? Where you had managers who their priority is just, yeah, let's just win games, right? We've seen managers talk about that before, but at the highest level, it's evolving, right? You have to have a real idea of what it is you want to do.
Well, he has got no identity. I think for a long time, I personally hoped that he was going to implement what he was talking about, this United way. And I said it even before Liverpool. I think I said it quite early this season. I said this was the season that he was going to show us the United way. And all he's showing us is what he did last year. And basically, I was at peace with it, that Ollie is just what he is. He's a reactive manager. He looks at Norwich, he looks at Southampton and thinks, well, that's what they do. I need to be a bit careful about that. That is what Ollie is. And I think you made a great point about, look, when we come back from this international break, if Ollie's still here, which it looks like he will be, he isn't going to suddenly find a way to play fast, attacking, flowing Manchester United football because he can't. He just can't coach a team to do that. And he, you know, this is a guy that basically has played 4-2-3-1 for the last year, loses a game to Liverpool badly, and then goes to a back 5. And people are like, well, he's used the back 5 before. He hadn't used the back 5 since Leipzig a year ago. And he's hardly ever used the back 5, to be fair. He's used it quite well a couple of times, maybe a handful of times. But it's not, he's now doing it to stay in a job. He's ripped up what his plan was for the season to try and save his job. And that's going to continue. It might not always be the back 5. I certainly don't think he'll play back 5 against Watford, but he's ripped his own project up, hasn't he?
This is the thing though. Formation shouldn't even affect that. When you're a top team, formation should not affect your principles whatsoever, right? That shouldn't matter. If right now, if tomorrow Pep plays a 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1 or 4-5, how Man City essentially play doesn't actually really change much, right? The principles are still there. The problem with us is, like I've said in the past, with Oli, it's very much we're leaking goals. Add another defender in there. Ooh, it's we're 2-1 down, 70th minute. We need a goal, so I just add another striker, right? Because strikers score goals, right? Like that can't be the way we approach games. It's not effective. Like that is just not effective. And I think every conversation, any avenue you go down, it just leads to one thing. Oli realistically just isn't good enough to be the manager of this club. And the type of manager he isn't one that you'd associate with the timeline of our squad right now, right? Like people talk about different types of managers. You have the Sam Allardyces of the world who, they're relegation managers. They save teams from relegation. You have the elite managers. You have certain managers who are going to come in and really help develop your young players and raise the ceiling. You have all you can associate different managers of different types. I don't know what type of manager Oli is, because I won't say he's a good manager after the way certain things have been handled. I wouldn't say he's a youth manager. What kind of manager would you say Oli is? Other than crap is what most people probably say, right?
Well, no, I mean, look, we're highbrow than that. We do get passionate, and he is a crap manager. But the reality is, I think if I was to like it, I think it's a great question. I mean, I'd love people in the chat to give us theirs. Who in world football is Oli like? And you can't say Neil Warnock, but to be honest with you, he's not like Neil Warnock or Tony Pulis or Sam Allardyce, because I know exactly what sort of managers they were. They were win the second balls, direct, route one. They weren't counter-attack. They were organised, route one, second balls, physical. They weren't counter-attack. So I'd say it's difficult to say what sort of a manager Oli is. I mean, probably I've always described him, as sort of a Poundland Mourinho, sort of on that road to what Nuno is, really. But I struggle, Levin. I really do struggle, because I know what he is. He's a reactive coach who relies on a back six or a back seven, and then pace and moments on the break, or a moment from Ronaldo, or a moment. I mean, look at Atalanta. We lost that game apart from a worldie out of I still don't. I've watched it again today. That equaliser from Ronaldo. How he does that in that little gap. And we've done that so many times, or a Rashford deflected shot late on. We don't move the ball quick. We don't play in triangles. We don't play in patterns. We don't bombard a team with wave after wave. We're just a counter-attacking team. I can't really think of a manager. I don't know about you.
Well, it's definitely not like Mourinho, because I think that's part of why he was appointed, because he was very much the opposite of Mourinho. Where Mourinho, his system is very rigid, there's not much room necessarily for expression. He wants every player to do certain things, whereas Oli came in and he was much more loose and free of it. So he's definitely not like Mourinho. People are saying something like Sean Dyche. He's not like Sean Dyche.
Southgate.
There's a very rigid... and what kind of... But this is the thing though. It's like, in terms of categorizing these people, what would you say Southgate's like that? And even then... to say, you can make a case that Southgate's a better manager than Oli. Like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe it's just like, emotion talking here, but I wouldn't even say, like, I just don't know who he is as a manager. Like, I can't put anything to it. Like, I really can't put anything to it. I
that's
don't
scary,
get it,
though, isn't it? Because that's disrespecting him even more. We can't actually pigeonhole him to what he is. Like most managers, you can do that. And in the summer, look, a lot of people said Ollie's just an English Southgate. And I used to be like, nah, because I couldn't stand Southgate. Southgate for me was so frustrating. He really was trying to get a clean sheet, and again, using moments and not, using an extra, so many attacking players, but then playing 5 defenders. I mean, to be honest, he probably is. Southgate's probably the one, as much as I don't want to say it because I denied it massively in the summer. I think there you've got a manager that's a nice guy who has amazing quality in his squad, but has got no idea how to use it at all.
And look, I'm seeing people in chat talking about, the sort of, he has more of a free-flowing system, which I think is true, right? His system is not as rigid. It's not as, strict. Players don't necessarily have to be as disciplined. But how do those types of teams improve? Typically, a team that plays that way, you improve via chemistry, right? If you're constantly playing with each other, players who play with each other start to gain an understanding. So you know, right, he's going to do that, right? You know, Bruno's probably going to make that. It's why, right, that Lindelof to Rashford ball is so prominent for us, because that's understanding, that's chemistry, right? Players understanding each other. Lindelof gets the ball, he knows Rashford's going to be making that run, let me launch that ball. But what we've had an issue with this season is we're constantly playing different people, right? We're constantly switching up the personnel. You can't develop chemistry when people are just constantly switching up who they're playing with. Like that just doesn't work. So nothing about what we've done this season, what we've tried, really signals to me somebody who really has a grip on what it is they want to do and has a serious plan of how they want things to play out. And if I can see that, you know, I'm not a football executive. A football executive to see that.
Sorry, no, just somebody. I will bring it into the show because somebody was just saying something. I was like, "What's that all about?" So, I wanted to talk about this bit anyway because obviously there's talk of a protest at the weekend, and we were talking a little bit more about division. What's your thoughts about that? You know, just in general. I've spoken about the protest. I won't be at it because I've got something on anyway. But also, I'm a little bit. It seems a bit rushed to me. You need everybody involved, and ultimately, it's turned into. I mean, I've even seen my name attached to the protest on Saturday, even though it's got nothing to do with me. And people are like, "Oh, it's the EE fans and this, that, and the other." I've said I'm not going. I've said I don't actually agree with it happening on Saturday because it's rushed, and I think protests should be for everybody. You know, united, not divided. There is this toxicity in the fan base at the moment.
Yeah, and I hate it, right? I was saying to you before the show, it's very, very divisive, and it's just become not fun. Like, I don't enjoy engaging with people on Twitter the way I used to at one point, just because it's just, you know, there's so many different subcategories and people who are just being sort of marginalized and just people who are being put into, you know, like, you're an E-red, you're a top red, you're an olysexual, you're a this, you're a that, and I'm sick of it. I think it's pretty boring. It's like you have a differing opinion and people just decide, okay, you have to be put in this group with all these other people who have that same opinion, and we just neglect everything you say. It's really frustrating to me. Look, I wasn't always somebody who, I've been on social media for a long time because of gaming stuff and esports stuff. People who know I do that stuff. You know, I never really engaged in much, you know, of the Manchester United talk online, really, apart from people in esports who would talk to me about football. And so growing up a lot of the time, right, maybe this is because of where I'm from, but growing up, right, if I see a brother and he's wearing a Man United shirt, my bro, like, you sort of, you know what I mean? You sort of have a rapport there where it's just because you both support United. Hey, I know, you know what's up, bro. Yeah, I know you know what's up, bro. You know what I mean? And it's almost like you can't even have that anymore because people are just way too obsessed with, you think that? Well, you're not a real United fan then. You think that? You're not a United fan. No, I don't agree with the protest. And I only don't agree with the protest just because they're protesting against Ollie. And I think, and like I said earlier, I just think putting all your energy towards Ollie, I think it's not effective. You know, he is the puppet. The Glazers are the puppet master. If it was marketed as just a Glazers out protest, sure, I'm all for it, right? But marketing as hashtag Ollie out, one, I think it's very ignorant to a disconnect that exists. And look, I'm willing to have honest conversations with people. People might not want to accept it, but there is definitely, if we are being honest, there is a disconnect between Mancunian fans and non-Mancunian fans. There is, right? There straight up is in this fan base. There's a disconnect there where you see it. A lot of the people who really don't like this protest are Mancunian fans. When I click on people's profiles, at least I'm seeing a lot of, you know, based in Manchester and that kind of thing. And I think and I think that's reflective of what happens in the ground as well, where people aren't, you know, singing Ollie out at the ground or anything like that. You know, they aren't Ollie out chants. Yeah, sometimes there's boos or whatever, but, you know, there's not that feeling of, oh, yeah, we should protest against Ollie. Whereas I think a lot of people who aren't from Manchester, I see are more willing. They're sort of like, I see people who are maybe from abroad or maybe just from a different place in the UK who are like, no, you should protest against Ollie. Why wouldn't you? You can't put anybody above the club. And look, whatever side you fall on, fair enough to you, but there definitely is that disconnect there. And obviously, if you're doing a protest in Manchester at Old Trafford and most Mancunian fans aren't really behind it, your turnout probably isn't going to be great. And I'll be interested to see how it goes for those people. But yeah, it's one of these things. I'm not a fan of all the divide. I just wish we can all have honest conversations. You're allowed to have different opinions. You are. But let's at least be able to talk about it. I think people are too in this mindset of, no, you're not a United fan, right? You think that you're not a United fan. I can't talk to you. It's a bit childish to me.
It cuts different. The reality is Manchester is a very, very unique city. And they're very proud of that city. And it's a way, it's the Mancunian way, you know, and I've said it before, like, I'm quite nomadic, really. I grew up in Nottinghamshire, not Nottingham City. I now live in the Midlands. I lived in Dublin. I've lived in numerous other places. And I would love to have been born 5 minutes away from Manchester and lived and worked in Manchester, because to wake up and work there and have your local, it cuts different when it's your local team. I get that. It's a different type of support if you're from Manchester. And it is different, and it is more real because it's where you're from. It's like, but we don't live in that world anymore. You know, people support England and their parents weren't born here. You know, they were born here. Manchester United got a lot of fans not from Manchester in the 50s because of what happened with the Busby Babes. And I'm not talking about the tragedy. My granddad loved the Busby Babes because they were a bloody brilliant football team. And it was the first team that really, you know, brought these young players in from all over, like Dudley for Duncan Edwards, and up north from Bobby Charlton, and, you know, signed Tommy Taylor from Barnsley, and built this exciting team with Sir Matt Busby. So it's not a new thing for United to have fans from around the world and around the country. And it's, you know, but there's a lot of people who watch the United Standard from Manchester. Adam's from Manchester, Beth's from Manchester, Ricky's from Manchester. So I think it's dangerous. And it's interesting because somebody was mentioning Gary Neville, and that's what I was looking at on my phone. So he's been speaking on Sky, and he said that the contingent on social media don't have the sympathy, the empathy, the compassion that the fans in the stadium have. And I think he's right. But again, I think, I think Gary Neville's questionable in the way he's conducted himself around the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thing, because he's openly admitted he's just biased because it's his mate. He's not going to say anything. And it's not about sacking him. He's not gone in on him the way he went on Mourinho and anybody tactically. But this is the thing. This is why the Glazers win for me. I'm not interested in saying this fan's better than that fan. What I'm interested in is that we're arguing about nothing, because none of us have any power. Oh, you're a better fan than me. Great. Crack on with that. Print a T-shirt off. You are a better fan than me, because it doesn't mean anything to me. What? I'm
sorry to cut you off, but I'm seeing people in chat going, you don't have to be from Manchester to be a fan. Nobody said that. And these are the kind of things. And I think this is why we can't have conversations, right? This is why there is so much divide, because I think people only want to hear what they want to hear. Yeah. I don't think people actually want to have conversations and listen to people's point of view. People just want, well, you just said Manchester. Oh, I have to be from Manchester to be a fan. No. I'm not from Manchester.
And I don't think many fans from Manchester. I don't think many fans from Manchester are saying that. They're not.
It's crazy, man.
What happens is this: you get this protest, and you see people ridiculing the people who are going to go to the protest, and they call them e-fans or, you know, day trippers, or and it's like, well, this is the thing. It's like, for me, it doesn't matter. I don't really care if you think you're a better fan than me. What does that mean? Like, but if you want to, I tell you what, I will even do a thumbs up and a speech bubble, and you can put Goldbridge says I'm a better fan than him. You can put it on your wall. You can frame it. What does it? If it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. But it doesn't bother me, and I don't think it bothers Levin. I don't think it bothers anybody. What bothers me about it is that this divide and conquer attitude just divides. Like, we have a common enemy, and it is the owners of this football club. Yeah. And we spend all this time arguing amongst each other. And look, maybe sometimes those arguments are correct. Maybe they're not. You know, maybe the way some people, you know, that's fine. But ultimately, what does it do? It just elongates the pain of the real issue, which is, as we've been talking about for the first 45 minutes, is that the terrible way this football club is run.
Yeah. All I'll say to people, is support, you know, the team how you want to support the team, right? I've always said I'm never going to be against people supporting the team however they want to support the team. I always just say to people, just be respectful of how people do that, right? You might not agree, you don't have to agree, you know, but if you don't like it, just don't say anything, just ignore it, right? Just allow people to do whatever they want to do, right? I've seen so many people going at each other on Twitter, and I do just sort of do my best to scroll past, but yeah.
You know what the problem with the protest is, though? I think you made a good point, which I didn't sort of add to and give you the chance to come back to, is my problem with the protest is that if people turn up at the weekend and it's on Sky and it's massive and it makes the Glazers crap themselves, great. Absolutely great. I think that's magnificent. But my issue with it is, if they sack Solskjaer in the morning, no one's protesting on Saturday. That's what it is. Like, that's the protest, because the Glazers haven't sacked Solskjaer. And I just think that that's probably why a lot of people are like, it feels like it's too much directed at Ollie, and that's where the respect and sentimentality comes in. It's a difficult one, because ultimately, if they sack Ollie, you're not going to protest. So it is directly linked to Solskjaer. But I also understand the other side, that actually the real issue is the incompetence of the Glazers and how they're running the football club. But it needs to be everybody. And look, Manchester United Supporters Trust, I've not heard anything from them in a very long time. So they're obviously busy doing what they're doing, and good luck to that. And it's very you've got to have. You saw it after the Super League. Everyone was united in disgust, not just at United, but all the clubs. To get that was, I said it at the time, it was such an opportunity, because I've never seen that before. There are loads of divisions in the fan base. There's divisions lot don't even understand amongst fan groups. So, not fan channels, I'm talking fan groups. That all fell down. The conversations that even we were getting involved in, I was like, oh my God, this is proper serious, because people are just dropping these agendas to to put this together. We're nowhere near that at the moment. And if you haven't got that, you can't replicate what happened in May. And what happened in May was very close to toppling the Glazers. They were shitting themselves. But we're not going to have that on Saturday, whatever's happening.
And that's why I say to people, right, when you focus your attention on the puppet master, you can create real change, right? And I don't think people should stop acknowledging where Ollie is falling short, because at the end of the day, he is falling short. And I myself will point that out, right? When we play Watford, when I see something that I think is poor, I will mention it, right? But this energy that people have right now, I think people are very frustrated at the situation. And if you channel that energy together to our common enemy, whether you agree with the things I say or not, whether you think I'm a waffler and you hate me or not, we both have the same enemy. We both have the same common goal. We want to see this team, be ambitious. We want to see this team, challenging and actually being run as a good football club. And we can get closer to that by directing our attention towards the Glazers. That's what
it's a really funny one, because I get abuse all the time. You do this, you get abuse. I've got to be honest, the last 5 days, I've probably had more abuse than I've had in the last 5 months. And I'm like, all I've done the last 5 days is say that the club's run badly, Solskjaer should be sacked, and we need to get a new manager. And yet I've had more abuse than I've ever had. And there endeth the lesson. Because even though it's very obvious that the Glazers have acted appallingly, unprofessionally, and disrespected the fans and everything, and not acted like a football club, even though that's very, very obvious, it's still prompting people to be more abusive and attack people than they ever have. And I just think, this is it. And I also think the Glazers are very, very not the Glazers, but the people who work for the Glazers enjoy this. They want to see the division, because as soon as they've got the division, the argument's moved. But
and the more division there is, as soon as they mess up, there's more people that have to come together to actually take them down, right? And more people trying to come together is just harder because there's so much division. So everything just plays into their favor. They're laughing, they're in Miami, chilling off, just having a blast. You know what I mean? But such is life.
Making a lot of money as well. Anyway, look, it's been a pleasure, everyone joining us tonight. I always end the end show and think you never know what's going to happen in the morning, but I don't know, I still think they'll do it, but I don't. I've got to start waking up to this fact and start getting in the headspace that I'm going to have to watch Ollie in a bloody press conference again. But I can't actually believe it, Levin. I actually cannot believe you can be Man United manager and sit in front of a press conference after what he's done over the last sort of month and a half. But thanks to the Glazers, as we've been talking about all night.
Yeah, well, as you said, guys, I've been saying this to people, and make sure you enjoy your evening. Have a good week. Hope you do well at work or school. Make sure you find time to do something you love, and try to take your mind away from what is the almost depressing situation we have right now at the club. All the advice I can ever give.
You can find Leven 2K on everything: Twitter, Twitch, probably Instagram. He's back from the dead on Instagram, aren't you?
Yeah, yes. Instagram tried to get rid of me, but I've risen from the dead, Undertaker style.
How did that even happen? How do they kill you off on Instagram? Is it just click the wrong button or something?
I don't get it, because to memorialize an account, you have to, 1, prove death, and 2, prove you're related to the person who died. So I don't know what proof of death they had. I think it's a glitch though, because apparently it happened to like the head of Instagram or something like a couple of weeks or months ago. So it's a glitch on their side. I got it sorted. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, wherever, YouTube. Wherever.
Either that, or this is a really epic show, and we've got Ghost Leven on the show. You know, he's literally back. He's like Patrick Swayze. He's here doing the show. That is mad. Yeah. Memorial page. It's not anymore, but I did see it yesterday. I was laughing at what Alex was putting in the replies. But
I got so many people saying, Leven, we will miss you in my DMs and stuff. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, honestly.
You probably got a few followers from it. Could people follow you when you were memorized?
Yeah, you know what? Because people did go to my account to check it, right? And I think they did just follow me when they saw it. So, yeah.
Nice. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Let's see what tomorrow brings. I really enjoyed the show, and we'll speak to you all in a bit.
Have a good night, guys.